Big hey now to everybody. Yes, it's time for another T-Share report. I'm just going to do a quick overview where we are today, what I'm expecting over the next couple of days, and kind of go from there. For those of us who have been experiencing the pain of the last 48 hours, let's take a look real quick at the charts. EX, HEX pair, EX and USD terms rebounded pretty nicely back kind of to its mean where it's been all the way back from like November 17th or so. So that's looking pretty good. Always remember 1 hex equals 1 hex. We look at the PHEX, hex on pulse chain. You can see we've also rebounded the last several hours upwards. I believe if we go take a look at overall, we've turned positive for the last 24 hours now. So a little bit of buyback there. I know some people were picking up this dip with really cheap hex, and then I think we look also the EHEX is up a little bit further, 1.29 percentage points. So it's been exciting to be never dull around here. I bet you it's never dull in Oregon. Hello, guys. How are you? Everybody out there? Hey, Belgian, I sent you some files. You get a chance to take a look at that stuff. Tim, good to see you. All right, let's keep going. All right. So next, we'll take a little quick look at the HEX daily stats. I know a lot of this information isn't pertinent and up to date, but one of the things it does track pretty well is the current T-share rate on the Ethereum side at 43,599 and the Pulse Chain side at 43,248. Payout per T-share on the Pulse Chain side is 1.6 today with an $8 million in penalties, which is a fairly normal kind of a range, 4 to 8 million on a daily basis. So nothing really big to see here as far as that goes. We could take a look at our T-share rates. We can see that we're expecting over the next couple of days some changes. I do expect to see the T-share rate go up. I don't know if it'll be 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days that we'll see the change. The stakes that are ending in the last days today would result in an increase. Some of those may result in an increase as far as high as maybe 45K. 44, 45K. So we should see a hefty increase in the T-share rate, with both of them being over 45 here in the next few weeks. Again, I'll remind you guys, right, the way the T-share rate changes is that somebody has to end a stake. And that stake, when the new share rate calculation is done, has to result in a higher T-share rate. And if it does, then what you'll end up with is a new rate set. And so it's very much about what those stakes have earned over time and how that figures it in, because the calculation is written in such a way as to ensure that you can't get T-shares any cheaper if you were to stake. Well, I should say not any cheaper, but it can't be any cheaper than the current rate. And so the way the calculation goes is it's looking at if you took all of the HEX that you had in your principal, and then you took all of your rewards and you restaked them for the same number of days, that you could not get the same number of T-shares. That's how it's written. And so it pops up the rate a little bit. And so we have some older, larger stakes, which are the ones that really make these kinds of changes, that are about to end. Now, here's the thing, right? I don't know if those people will end or not. So I'm only forecasting what might happen if they do end. And if they don't end, then somebody may come along and good account them or whatever, but that will not change the share rate. So what has to happen is we would wait for the next stake that would get ended, maybe on the same day. Sometimes they're in competition. There's one that'll also end on the same day with a just a little bit smaller T-share rate, and that will happen. Or it might be a couple days. So we'll have to watch it and see. But I do expect that we're going to see a nice increase in the T-share rate in return. When you see this big flat spot, and actually you can sort of see this on the screen here, that these are not exactly flat, right? We have stakes that could be ending today, tomorrow, that would increase the share rate. But then they also go up a little bit further on the next day, and then a little bit further on the next day. Well, what that's showing is there is another stake that's coming along that would boost it up just a little bit further, and so on and so forth. So that's why I say there are stakes that are here. We're going to probably get to that 45 within a day or two. Once it gets to the 45, we may have 3 or 4 days before the share rate will change again. And then as the short stakers end their stakes and then restake for, whatever the next term is, if it falls within this period, right, they will incrementally increase the share rate. So instead of it being a big flat line here, when we go look in the past, we'll see, and I can't show you on this one, but I'll show you on another one. You'll just see that, these flat spots just go away. Now, the reason we're seeing such a long period of time, and when I go to the 60 and 90 day, you'll see it go out even further, is because these stakes that are supposed to be right here around November, there aren't any that are ending after that for a period of time that we can see that are going to result in higher T-share rates. So the forecast is flat, but of course, again, we know based on what people do, that there will be short stakers, and it will increase the rate. And so you can see on the 60-day, it's flat all the way out. 60 days, 90 days, it's flat. We got to 120 days, it's flat. All right. But if we go to the end of the year and we look at that, it does go flat till there. So let's go into the 27 one. You can see the flat spot goes all the way out here until the OA stakes out, right? So we have a period of time where the T-share rate's probably going to be pretty stable, in that maybe on average it's going to go up 1 hex per day, that type of thing. Maybe 5 or 6 hex, something like that. But it won't be a significant, magnificent, difference like this. Then once we get past that period, and again, the way this will end up looking when we're done, let's see here. Let me get my widget doesn't want to come up to let me draw. Okay, so I guess I'm not going to show you. There we go. All right. So what will end up happening is we'll end up with something that's going to look a little bit more like this, right? But with I guess I probably should use a different one. Let me do the line again. It'll probably look something more like this, so it won't be anything significant the way we look at it, but it'll just slightly increase or go on an incline. So I do expect to see that happen. All right, then we're off to the races again, and we'll see these increases begin on a very slow basis for a while, all through 26 until we get to October of 26, where we have another big one, and then a year from now, another big one, even bigger, which would get us close to that 50K level, be about 49-ish, but somewhere in that range. Now, all of this can change a little bit. So what would change it if one of the stakes that was planned and expected to end gets emergency end staked? Well, the likely result from that is probably not a change in the share rate. So that could happen. We could see a increase in the payout per T-share per day, which would increase these changes and they would go up higher, or we could see a decrease and it would lower them down a little bit. But I think for our purposes, it just kind of gives you the, kind of like the eyeball and about number, right? So again, at some point here, we're going to hit 45, and then about a year from now, we'll be about almost to 50, 49.50, and then that'll just continue so on and so forth into into 2027, and then to the end of 27. Looking at our all models, where we can look at a couple different things that might happen, including a couple different forecasts. Again, the range is pretty tight. I mean, we're saying something between, going out all the way to 2037, somewhere between 74 and 80K by then. All of this has been affected by the OA staking, which has really stabilized the system and made it so that the changes will be a little bit more predictive over time, and the original stakes that have been out there since before the OA will continue to lead the changes, right? And one of the big things about that, I think is important, is, and that is, I think some people don't realize because their eyeballs aren't on staking. Staking isn't the thing that they're looking for. One of the things that they may not understand is that for the new stakers, it's much more expensive to get your T-shares back because the rate is going to be changing much faster than relative to how much you potentially may earn in rewards, which means it's harder for you to keep up and to resecure T-shares. But for the folks who had previously staked, they're buffeted a little bit, right? So they've been in these stakes maybe, 4 or 5 years, and they enjoyed an awful lot of reward on the front end, and that just gives them more HEX to be able to try to keep up. But they also won't be able to keep up, right? So it's just a matter of the situation being set up the way it is. Last few days when I've been thinking about it, I've been thinking about how this first 5 years, you might describe it as having been a distribution event, a bootstrapping event, where those people who really truly wanted to be in the system got into the system. They're in the system. They're doing the staking. They've had the staking, and now they reap a benefit from that. But it's not the same treatment for new stakes, right? So the new stakes, different phase of HEX as we go into the second 5 years. And so I think a lot of people who have the stakes that have been in, we'll call them the OGs, I guess. Everybody before this would be an OG. They have the opportunity to continue to participate in a way that the future people cannot. And again, it's because of the stakes that they had in the past. And so they have a choice to make when their stakes come out is to whether they're going to preserve any of their T-shares or not, or somewhere in the middle. So yeah, it can be a lot of fun to watch the numbers and how they go as we go forward. Let's see, drawdowns, and let's see what we got for drawdown. I did not preload this, so let me load this up real quick. And we're going to look at the 21st. I just have to reset the date real quick to make it calculate for me. All right, and so looking at these two charts, looking backwards in the last month, really need to update this so I don't have to do this part, but let's do it anyways. We'll update it. We can see on the maybe somebody has some different information, but it looks to me like on the HEX side, the Ethereum side, that in the last month we've had 95,000 T-shares and change ended, and only 44,000 started, and that gave us a net of losing about 50% of the T-shares on the Ethereum side. So again, the number of T-shares are going down a little bit more rapidly than the Pulse Chain side, which means that the payout will be a little bit higher, even though we didn't see it on the HEX daily stats because it was blank. The payout will be a little bit higher, which means that share rate will continue to lead Pulse Chain, at least in the near term. Probably long term, but at least in the near term. And we can see that when we go look at the charts, that that the HEX, which is in pink, is just a little bit higher, than the HEX from Pulse Chain, which is in green. And so that's just going to continue that way, I would expect. But I guess we'll know when we know. On the Pulse Chain side, we did have 124,000 T-shares end and about 88,000 created, and that gave us a net of around 30%, minus 30%. And so again, T-shares are becoming more expensive, and this kind of gives us the idea of how many we're losing, day over day. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, so these aren't exact calculations, because I don't know when everybody's going to end, and some people will end a week later or a month later, that type of thing. But just gives you kind of like a view of what's happening within the system. So yeah, the T-shares are going to become even more scarce as we go along. Now, you can see that actually happened in the T-share count, and I know I've shown you guys this before. This is the full history of the T-shares, so it doesn't look like it's coming down quickly when you look at this tail end, but you can see the decline here. And then of course, if I change up the dates and I go to something like we'll do 4/1/2025, it puts in a little bit more, highlights a little bit more. You can see how the T-shares are coming down on each chain, day over day. And that will likely continue in this fashion, right? Again, because the T-shares by definition become more expensive, and so you need not only for people to continue to participate with everything, but to bring in more value or to stake for longer periods of time in order for this trend to change. And we have not observed, other than the events like the OA staking or the God whale coming in and staking, we just have not seen this trend reverse, and I don't think it can reverse. But technically, I guess it could. It could. I mean, it's possible somebody could do something different. A lot of liquid HEX out there that people could put to use and stake with. So you can see that. When we look at the and again, this one happens to be PX. It's the one I had selected. We look at this chart here. This is our T-shares for the PHEX. And you can see year over year what the expected values might be, assuming, a very similar restaking rate, as I just mentioned. Now, how this could change is I don't know what's going to happen in March of 26. Okay, I don't know if the OA is going to restake or not, and so that could really start shaking things up. Because if the OA does restake, well, then they're subject to the same rules everybody else is subject to, and so then this maybe likely stays intact, right? Something like this is what we'll see going into the future. But if the OA does not restake, then what will happen is this chart will reset. Instead of there being 43 million, maybe it drops down to whatever the OA has minus the OA, and then it'll then show the scale. This whole line drop down a little bit further. You can also see our profile here at the bottom. I'll make it a little bit bigger, and I'll show it in a different way in a few minutes. But we're year over year, the number of T-shares that are expected to end. Like all of these have pretty much been since before. Most of this action was created before the launch of Pulse Chain, right? So all of these stakes. And so these stakes that we're looking at in 2038 and 39 are also in that situation. And you can see how even on this scale, right? We look over here in this area here, that we had this valley of T-shares where there just are sure the OA's out there. It's got this big tall tower of T-shares, but there are fewer and fewer users who will have T-shares out in 38 and 2039. Now it could change, right? People could come in and they could start staking, and then maybe they double the number of T-shares that are out there per year. Whatever they might do something. I don't know, but so far, that has not been what I've been seeing, right? So opportunity still exists relative to other users to be able to get a bigger share of the T-share of the T-shares that might be out in 2038 and 2039, and therefore be able to get the additional rewards that would be available in that period. And then again, we're always talking about the OA because I don't know what the OA is going to do. You still have this huge stack, right here from the OA that'll be in place until early 2040. And but again, we don't know what's going to happen with the OA. But right after that ends, there's no more T-shares. I mean, literally, it's as close to zero as you can get in terms of T-shares. So if you were to stake out Quattro Cinco, you fall into this bucket in 2041. And if the OA does not restake, and then again, it's just one of the cases, the OA does not restake, then you're one of the recipients of a ton of HEX. And if the OA does restake, you're still a recipient of a ton of HEX. It's just it'll be adjusted by the number of T-shares and the earning power that the OA puts in place. So that's what I'm looking at there. So this is nothing new. This is what we've been seeing for weeks now since those big changes. A lot of times I describe this as kind of like watching paint dry because this is, these things are really hard to change. It took the OA staking all of its HEX to really change how this looks, right? And so there just isn't anybody with that firepower, that amount of HEX out there that can do anything like that. Looks like a payout per T-share. Now, payout per T-share, very similar situation in that, all of this is affected by the number of T-shares, right? Because, the total amount that we get paid out is determined by the number of T-shares, because the payout is divided by the number of shares, and that's how it's determined. So when we look at over time, again, it looks very flat, but this is a doubling of the payout all the way out into 2041. Now, if we bring this up a little bit, give this a second to go, you can see looks like the numbers going up a little bit faster when I look at this view, right? From 158 now to, by the time we get to 2028, 163, et cetera, all the way up until we get to near 2 and then 3 HEX per T-share per day. Now, these current prices, a lot of people are not super excited about less than a penny HEX and, getting, 1 or 2 of those. What does that matter? But I would remind you that, HEX was at 50 cents at one point, right? And so somebody with 100 T-shares could be making, $50 a day in terms of HEX value with extreme price appreciation. And 50 cents isn't even really extreme over this period of time. It actually would be a pretty low number. So we'll watch this over years. We'll watch it over the years. That's how long it's going to take for this whole game to play out. And that's why I say it's a 15-year cycle with HEX. A lot of the things that, I would put into place have to do with planning for way out in the future. I mean, who plans 15 years in advance? Almost nobody. But you can do that, and you can actually set yourself with a nice revolving ladder. And if you just for fun, you could say to yourself, well, I can look at these numbers, and I know that, I don't know, by 2030, I want to have a certain amount of HEX come out. And, pick your moon price for HEX, whether it's 50 cents, $1, whatever the moon price is, and say, man, I'd be pretty excited about, getting 100 HEX a day at $5. That might be a big deal. And so, yeah, again, it is definitely not for those who are looking for really quick turnarounds on this, right? We talk about the HEX stake. Looking at the Quattro Cincos that have been made and what we're seeing get started, Last month we did see 820 T-shares. This month we're up a little bit at 1,090. New Quattro Cincos out there. So very low numbers, right? And yeah, sure, there's other counts, and perhaps I'm not catching it all, but it kind of gives you a flavor. But you have to stake pretty far out to get into this window. So whether it's 5,550 days or 5,400 days or whatever it might be, we're just not seeing the amount of staking that really would change this in the near term, right? For what it might look like in the future. Our average staking lengths for open stakes remains pretty much the same, right? I mean, it's not going to change. You know why? Because what we're doing is we're measuring open stakes, right? And so the short stakes open and they close, and they open and they close. The long stakes, for the most part, stay in, and so they kind of control what this chart is going to look like. So a lot of times what I'll do is look at the average staking length created, and from we are seeing some pretty interesting numbers here. I mean, it's not like completely terrible, but the average for EHEX is 4.3 years and PHEX 3.6 years is the average. So people are doing both short and long stakes, even if they're not doing as many as they used to, but it gives you the idea of what's happening. And another way that some people try to leverage the system is just make sure that they're going out further than the average. And this way they're PvP, player to player, doing better. And then of course there's a whole contingent of people now that they're only staking Quattro Cinco, right? Period. And even if it is only 1,000 wallets or 100 wallets, actually it's about around 100 wallets, 130 wallets a month that are doing that. And then some of them are doing multiple stakes. But what is created is this opportunity, which I think it's an opportunity where I look way out in the future. And now this is by end date. So these are by end dates. And you can see this big stack out here in April of 2040. That's the OA. And this chart doesn't do it justice. I had to put it in log because if I don't put it in log, it looks like everything's zero and you just have the OA stick. But I put it in log scale because we have 16 million coming out in April of 2040. The next month, it's less than 2,000. And then the next month, less than 2,000, et cetera, et cetera. So we have all of these months now that have passed where people have not come in and staked out Quattro Cinco to fill this in anywhere near the kind of magnitude that we had with the OA. But it was pretty consistent. It was with the past. And so we have this opportunity, asymmetrical bet, where maybe it makes sense to do coffee money, Quattro Cinco every month to have exposure out the 15 years, if you believe in, and the HEX maybe. And I do see some people coming in pretty strong. I mean, I've seen some million HEX stakes go out there most recently and really start loading up. But again, you can see the numbers, right? Even with that being the case, that we've seen that. We're still for January of 2041, 1,360-ish T-shares. Looks like we just got about 100 T-shares in February. We just probably rolled over on the date where you're getting February dates now of 2041. And so, yeah, it is definitely the contrarian play. Let's take a look at this stuff. Let's see what we got in the chat. I don't think there's anything else I want to cover. Yeah, Tim, good to see you, Tim. Vietnam, huh? See if we had questions that match up with what's going on here. As always, Acid Thunder, good to see you, Acid Thunder. Hit those likes. Yeah, Tim, it's not gonna. Tim's asking when the OA stake ends in March, how high can the T-share rate go to? It's not really gonna be much of a change, right? It won't change the T-share rate very much. And as far as the payout per T-share, while it is a lot, I'm assuming you're talking about in 2026. While it is quite a few T-shares, the rate might go up 0.02, 3, or 4 hex per T-share per day. You know, the amount that people are getting paid out per T-share. And so again, boil the frog kind of a situation where people will be like, what? It's not really very much, and they're going to kind of fade it. But that is going to happen repeatedly over 15 years. And when you start adding up all those little changes, it really becomes a big deal. Susie Q, good to see you out there. Thank you for reposting the stream. Yeah, Dewey's saying, imagine having a kid have one T-share right now, letting that grow with them. Yeah. I mean, the idea that you could be doing that, it could turn out to be zero, right? It's crypto. I'm not gonna fade that idea that, lie about that. But I mean, you know, Christmas is coming up, holidays are coming up, Hanukkah's coming up, right? There's all sorts of stuff going on. $167 is what the cost is right now for a T-share on the Pulse Chain side. And of course, if you're going out Quattro Cinco, that's 3 T-shares. So it's about 55, 60 bucks for a T-share. And you could set up a recurring Quattro Cinco ladder going forward for a while, for yourself, for somebody else, and get that set up. And maybe it doesn't turn out to be a big deal, but I bet you there's some people watching this stream that paid 50 bucks for dinner tonight from a fast food restaurant, and so not that much of a sacrifice to really try to do that. But again, not financial advice. You all can do your own thing. You got to do it. It's DeFi. Nobody can tell you what to do. Yeah, Dewey, we need a T-shares for toddlers campaign across America. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I've heard, of course, we got a bunch of protocols that I report on. As you know, Actuator. We've got the HSIs, which are part of Actuator, but separate project. Actuator just uses those. We have Stakehouse out there doing pooled stakes. I mean, you have all these different tools that are available to you. I've heard some people talking about building additionally on HEX. Wouldn't it be cool? If something like Richard envisions or other people envision where, I can just DCA into a HEX staking ladder, and I don't have to push all these buttons, right? I just simply go get the token that I need, and with the idea that it's back, maybe somebody's going to build that product. Maybe I'll build it. I don't know. All right, Dewey's also saying HEX could be at $5 one day. Yes, it could be. Let's talk about that for a moment, because we usually get, people get pretty bent out of shape over the fact of the price action in the past, and I don't blame them. Right? I don't like it either. But this is crypto, and I am making the presumption that HEX will be as successful as HEX Impulse Chain will be as successful as ETH. Maybe not in exact dollars, just like ETH was as successful as Bitcoin, but not in the exact dollars, and a number of other things that are out there. So I remain very, very much a believer that the possibility exists that HEX is going to go up, and I saw a lot of stuff today from people coming out saying, oh, it's over. Everything ended in October, and we're going back into a bear. But I don't believe that's the case at the moment. I don't see any indications that we certainly didn't have a blow off top, and so I also wouldn't expect to see that the same type of action we would normally see after a blow off top if you didn't have one, right? But that being the case, for those who might not know, we've seen crypto cycle. It goes up to some sort of top, so it gets sold down. It cycles back up to some sort of top, and it comes down. But typically, when you zoom out, you can see that overall the lows are higher lows, and in terms of USD, and that's an important point, right? Because I'll tell you, I know what I want in crypto is 1000x, right? Sure. But if I was outside of crypto, which I am, of course, but in TradFi, you show me something that's going to pay me, it's going to appreciate 20% a year, I'm in. The reliable, I'm in. Berkshire Hathaway, I'm in. Right. So why, it's just that the risk reward is higher with crypto. Right. Anybody who promises you, it's probably has no, they have no right to be promising stuff they can't deliver, right? Because we don't control what the markets do, but we can kind of intuit from the past experiences what happened, and and ultimately, um, even though so many people want, a savior to bring things to higher prices, and perhaps they will. Bottom line is this: is the tokens have supply and demand dynamic, and in the case of HEX, it has a supply and demand dynamic. It is controlled by the users. The OA has put itself on the sidelines now. It has stabilized the entire program, but they're on the sidelines. There's really not a lot of action that the OA can do to change what the future is, and now it's in our hands as the users. And so if we want to sell, price will be deflated. And if we want to buy and hold price may appreciate. And that's just how it's going to work. I mean, and that's why I like a lot of these other tools that are out there that just give you a lot more opportunity, to be able to work with us. And that's where you were saying actuator and multiplying T-shares. And yeah, and it is HEX evolved. What else we got here? Dewey is saying people would take another look at HEX staking if they know they could become tradable, and also you can get liquidity from HSI stakes before the end. Well, I'm on that mission to spread that information. I know you're aware of it. We'll keep talking about it, but yeah, I think that's a big important part. Just because you do a Quattro Cinco now doesn't mean you cannot access the liquidity early. You can. But of course, that's a whole nother thing. Go look at my streams on Actuator, or go dig in. Better yet, go do your own research with Actuator, and go take a look at it. Thanks, Dewey. I think it's good data too. I'm glad that you like it, Tam. I know I'm in there. Oh yeah, let's see here. Morgan Maniac, 1364. Some of us ended up with all these damn numbers at the end of our IDs. I don't know what the hell they did, but they're there. HEX will become the most lucrative store of value tokens in the future. I agree that is certainly the possibility. I certainly think it's that in Pulse Chain. That's how I feel about it on Pulse Chain for sure. And I think it'd be the case. And it's, remember, they're different people. They're different. We all wear different hats when we're in the crypto space. So it's not all one way or another. So there are people who are interested in doing things like cycle trading, and they'll want to do it in the future. There will be people who are going to be doing day trading. There are going to be people who, and I'm seeing it right now. I don't know if others are seeing it, but people are trading, things like Maxi, Deci, the actuator tokens, HTTs, like it's a bond market. Right now, it's happening on a daily basis. So I think a lot more of that's going to come as well. It wouldn't hurt, of course, if the price was 10x or 100x from here, right? That would be a big deal. And Dewey's saying, yeah, we could do something interesting like the T-shares for toddlers. That's a good brand, by the way. Of course, T-shares for toddlers might simply refer to adult toddlers, but maybe with AI you could do an auto staking ladder. Yeah, you could. Though actually, I'd have to put some more thought into it as to exactly what that might look like. And Tam's asking, probably our last question. Tam's asking, can you please remind me why the T-share rate is higher on the ETH side than the Pulse Chain side? Yeah, visually, let me show it to you on the screen why, and then we'll wrap up here. So we go back over to our charts here, and we go look at the T-share count. This is why. This is why it's higher on the Pulse chart. Excuse me, on the Ethereum side. We have less T-shares. We have less T-shares on the Ethereum side, and so that means the payout, the APR, is just a little bit higher. And because the APR is higher, it calculates a higher T-share rate when staked sent. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. So with that, I hear the dinner bell in the background. I don't know if you guys heard that. I don't think it was a dinner bell. I think my wife dropped something. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. Hey, thanks everybody for joining me. Get this stream over to somebody who gives a damn, right? Somebody who might be interested. You guys stay crispy, and we'll see you next time.
Yo, T, urgent HEX buy signal. Charts flaming hot.
Golden ratio, huh? That's how legends stack T-shares.
Get them while they're crispy, folks. This window won't stay open long.
Stake smart. Win big. Time rewards those who act.
Stay crispy, Hexicans.
You gotta move it, move it! Feel the rhythm of the blockchain.